And then
I will
point at
give
the old man.
a
And then
blank
I
expression.
ask.
And Sotek, remind me, because I'm pretty sure we did. It was we couldn't say the name in camp was the official thing that Silverhand told us,
Yeah,
right?
Silverhand was not okay with Otto. Silverhand was very not okay with people bringing up Rogenbach. It like could borderline throw him into a rage.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to check because I know my first mission for him was specifically not to talk about Rogenbach. I was trying to remember if that was just for in camp or outside of camp too.
He didn't say anything about outside of camp. He just said don't bring it up. He didn't really specify.
Okay, just wanted to confirm this would not break a promise with the elf who has
okay.
or
It's
the
Otto
wizard who has a bit of my
Silverhand.
soul.
Yeah, Braun is the name of the dwarf leader. Okay. And then Rolf. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, if it isn't going to upset the wizard who has a bit of my soul, I would bring up Rogenbach as a kind of aside to these crazy people I saw in a town.
I would say you do not feel 100% confident you'd get in trouble if you get in trouble for it here or not, but you feel it would probably be unlikely. It depends on how powerful you think Otto is. Or how much he would actually care at this distance.
You know what? I like to live life on the edge. I'll ask, oh, so it's probably got some of the mystical things up over there, like their old gods and stuff. A whole bunch of fooey, as I understand it.
He sort of gives a quizzical look and he says, I guess? I can't say I know for certain anything.
I will nudge Wrist.
Wrist will roll his eyes. Oh, you know, the kind of god that hates cats real bad. I guess it's some kind of ward protection. Things may have been useful to them. Though I don't know how bad a ward would be if it kind of draws bad things to you. Seems kind of silly to me.
Roll a plus 20 gossip check. Okay. He frowns a decent bit, and he sort of like leans forward to look outside, and he leans back and he says, "Now, it could be that I'm getting old, but I'm gonna assume you're not bringing up something that shouldn't necessarily be talked in polite company."
I hope not.
He nods and he leans back a little bit and says, "Strange rumors going around town. Stuff about some bizarre people going around. Cannibals, I've heard."
Oh, I heard that one too. Also about the blood-drinking fae folk.
He nods and says, "I imagine the two are conflated. Probably similar. But there is some truth to the rumor, unfortunately. As for your question, when it comes to dealing with exaggerated myths, the Hager Creeper sap is right up there along them. Now, whether or not, if such things were true, if it would protect you, or merely draw the attention of whatever idiots might be dealing with, that's beyond my expertise. You'd have to consult a wizard at that point."
Would you happen to know how to rid an area of the Hager creepers?
He sort of chuckles and says, "Hager creepers are, I'll be polite and call them tenacious. They're almost invasive. Once they've got their roots in somewhere, it's virtually impossible to get rid of them. And if you're up there near Hagerdorf, that's their natural turf. Getting rid of them, you'd have to burn the entire forest down."
Varv, are we up near Hagerdorf?
At the moment, no.
Oh, good.
That's where your camp is.
Ah, that sounds lovely.
He nods and says, "Hager creepers aren't inherently dangerous, mind you. Just don't harvest the sap." The trees naturally will, I don't want to say heal, but they close off any leaks surprisingly quick. They're greedy about their sap. Difficult to farm, those.
I will look to Rist and nod, and I will kind of sit back.
Oh, what an unpleasant topic. Well, Mr. Jetton, it's been a great pleasure knowing you and sampling some of your fine tea. If you have a moment, I'd love to talk to you about whatever we had such an interesting conversation. I think I'd love to hear about the work you're doing, and I will gesture towards the book he was so studiously examining and writing in.
He gestures and says, these are records for inventory. The festival's coming up in a few months, and I need to make sure I'm fully stocked, so I need to get my orders out now.
Rist's eyes will twinkle and say, a festival here? Oh, you wouldn't happen to know the day, would you?
He nods and says, I'm surprised you haven't heard of it up in camp. Probably about 3 months from now, before fall closes out and winter's going to come in, we have a festival for Raya to celebrate the closing of the year. Hagerdorf should be having one as well.
Oh, but a festival in a big city it's the best.
He nods and says, true, Jettenberg does go all out for this particular one. The close of fall festival is very important to many people here. Good way for the farmers to get rid of anything we can't save for over the winter, so there's a lot of excess food to be eaten. On good years, anyway.
Would this festival be celebrated any differently up in the Hager Crypts?
He shrugs. He starts scratching one of his ears and says, used to go up into those forests when I was a younger man, but I haven't been up there in an age, and I never went as far as Hagerdorf itself. Nothing but ill omens from that far up in the mountains.
That was a very scary ride, I can tell you that.
He nods and says, staying in the Hager Creeps is just asking for trouble, if you ask me.
It probably is. Unfortunately, I need the coin to buy expensive and very potent healing draughts.
He chuckles and says, well, you could probably always find what you're looking for here whenever you stop by.
It would be a pleasure to have a nice bit of conversation and a cup of tea with you.
He nods and he sort of looks at the two of you for a moment, and then he reaches for his quill and starts to slowly delve back into his inventory.
Right, I will wave goodbye and head out unless Verve has something she wants to do, like read every label in this store.
No, I'm good. You did pay the man for the draughts, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
All right, let's check in with Verstadt. How you doing, Verstadt?
So where would I be? Would I just be waking up from my long sleep?
Yeah, last we checked, you stayed at the inn to rest, and when you wake up this time, you feel fine. Your tired condition is gone.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's fairly late in the day to wake up. It's like 2 p.m.
Okay. Is there a library in the city? And if there's
There is.
not,
They
there
have
is. Okay.
they have a full academy.
I would like to go there.
All right. It is fairly easy for you to make your way to the Jettenberg Academy, though. Get your wrist. When you get here, you two. We'll just leave it up here like this for the moment. But when you get in, you notice that there's a little bit of. It's surprisingly active when you walk in. You see an elderly man who's sitting all the way at the end of the hall at the chair, furiously talking to what looks like a dwarf who is just decked out in some kind of ceremonial plate armor, who seems to nod absentmindedly, who looks ancient even for a dwarf. And the room is full of scribes who are busily running around, and you notice a lot of them are actually scrubbing at a part of a floor where it looks like something must have either caught on fire or exploded or something, because there are just some black scorch marks on the ground.
Interesting. All right. I will approach these two, I guess.
Okay. As you make your way towards the head table, you do get cut off before you can quite make it there by a scribe, who is a bald-headed young man that bows his head politely and says, Sir, can I help you with something?
Perhaps you can. I was looking for, this may sound silly, I was looking for some books that detail local children's stories or legends.
He nods and says, of course, sir. Please, right this way. I'll find you a table. Please pardon the mess. We had a slight incident earlier this morning.
An incident, you say?
He nods and says, just a peculiar duo that came in. They upset the headmaster of the academy.
I see.
He leads you over to a table and asks you to sit, and he does sort of, he says, are there any particular legends or local tales you're seeking to hear about? We do have quite the collection.
Well, I'm interested in the local deities. Of course, there's Tal and Raya, but some of the more primordial deities that
he nods sort of absently and says, yes, are you by chance working for any of the local lords? We've had quite a bit of interest recently in some of the old gods.
You've had some interest in the old gods, you say?
He says, yes, we've had a visitor a few times. Lord Anders has come by on numerous occasions to look at our library.
Ah, yes. Me and Lord Anders work together.
He nods and says, of course, then I can pull directly from his tab. This should make this simple. And he heads over and starts looking through some shelves, and he comes back with a set of 5 books and places them on the table and says, is there anything else I can get you?
I believe that will be it for now. Thank you very much.
He nods and bows slightly and starts moving back to helping tidy up.
All right, I look through these 5 books. What are they generally titled?
So the first one is called Myths and Revenants of Jettenberg Society, which seems to be a fairly recent, and it seems to be a very dry, to the point collection of particular myths and legends, and it very much has a tone of someone who is collecting it for academic record, but very clearly views it all as just ghost stories.
Yep.
The next one seems to be more of a ancient preserved set of children's tales that seem to speak about seems to speak about a selection of peculiar creatures that children are supposed to avoid certain places or behaviors to watch out for and stay safe. Another one has to do with another one is basically called the Lost Records of the Hager Cribs, and you notice that when you open it, most of the pages seem to be pages from other books or letters or scripts that have basically been woven into the book. So it seems to be a collection of other records that have been basically slotted together. And then the last 2 books are more of, one of them is basically called the Truth of Tallite Evolution, which seems to be mostly about trying to explain any inconsistencies with religions of the old gods leading into or the minor old gods leading into the proper old gods. So it's basically explaining how tall has always been the one true power here, and most people are confused. Whereas the last book seems to explain how all the new gods are the only relevant gods, and the old gods are completely false. And it almost seems to take direct passages out of the fourth book and refute them with various dogma.
All right. I'm going to take a closer look at the set of ancient preserved children's tales, if that's all right.
Sure. So the number one thing that catches your attention as you flip through the pages is about halfway through the book. The book is primarily, each page has like a very limited amount of text, and there's usually some kind of associated picture that's fairly crude. But and most of them seem to have been drawn with some form of charcoal or black ink or something, but they look very old. Well preserved, but old. But the one that catches your attention the most as you're flipping through the pages is you find one page where it shows a child, and it's not a rhyme, but the story seems to basically say something along the lines of, from what you actually roll a roll a either roll me an let's do intuition. That should work for this.
All right.
Okay, yeah, that's good enough. So the page catches your attention because on the bottom of it, you notice that there's what seems to be a child being surrounded by a group of monsters, and the child seems to be essentially in the fetal position. And the story is very much a, don't do this or you'll attract the attention of this name of all these different named things. And what's referring to what creature is super unclear, but you notice that one of the creatures gives you a really uneasy feeling as you look at it. And when you actually take a moment to really consider it and try and see where the smudges of the lines work out, you realize that it seems to vaguely be the shape of what looks like a man, but he has a skull and antlers for a head.
Where have we heard this
All
before?
right.
The cave.
Yes. Okay.
And the story's warnings for children, it says to never allow a cat into your home, never stay out after dark, never leave a baby of any kind out in the woods, and never cut from the trees that bleed.
Well, I didn't cut, so I'm good there.
Okay, I'm just gonna reread the end that says a baby of any kind. Is that like very specific?
Roll a language check.
Sure.
Because it's written in essentially classical tongue. Which, do you know classical?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this will be difficult. So take a -10.
Language.
Oh, language might not be an outright skill. I think language is a passive now. Roll me an intelligence check at -10. That'll be fine.
Sure.
Oh no, language is a skill. It's just advanced.
Ah, okay. Then I don't have that.
Oh, you need to enter it yourself then. But language Reichspiel will be appropriate. It is just difficult.
And this would be intelligence?
Yes, it's the intelligent grouping. At -10.
Would have been 41, so still passed.
Okay. With 2. Okay. So from what you can gather based on the wording, it seems to basically mean do not leave out a youngling of any. From what you can tell, it's vaguely saying don't leave out a youngling of any species.
Okay.
So it's more of it's not so much like don't forget something out there. It's more saying never leave an offering of the young out in the forest. Whether it be bird or beast or fish or human. Or else the darkness will come. Which is the very vague threat that all of these habits promise.
Okay, so after reading that, I'm gonna evaluate the time. How much time has passed?
Uh, uh, After kind of having to get all the books, leaf through them to figure out which ones you want to look at, and looking at that one, about 2 hours have passed.
Okay, so about 4 o'clock. I'm gonna head out and head back to the inn where we are, hoping to meet up with Wrist and Verve.
Okay. As you close the books and start to get up, you do notice that there is an attendant, like kind of waiting behind you for you to finish, and he's holding like a little brass cup, and he seems to kind of like shake it gingerly at you, not in a threatening way, but like in a.
No, yeah. So I will drop in 4 brass pennies.
He nods and says, "Thank you, sir, for your generosity." And
Thank
then
you.
and they quickly put up your mess. All right, you head back to the Harpy's Talon Inn, and you quickly find, as you're walking up, you run into your 2 friends.
Just in time.
Oh, well, I have impeccable timing, as you know. It's lunchtime. Or is it dinner time? It's time for food.
It is about that time. Where have you guys been?
Oh, I
Oh.
got myself some of the greatest apothecary this side of the Grey Mountains special elixirs.
I roll my eyes.
Or
That-
so Verve said.
That sounds reputable. We'll
It
check
does.
them out.
If only I knew more to test them before, or to gauge how good they are before he bought them. They were expensive.
Well, that they all were, but your life is worth it.
Let me see those, Rust, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Yeah, here you go. Look at this one. And I will take out one of them with its own little pouch and hand you the pouch.
So I actually have evaluate because I think it's a human skill. Can I evaluate this?
Yep.
Okay.
That's a fine pouch. Reusable.
Let me see. And I sort of look at it from different angles. Do I see anything with a +2?
They look legitimate. You would, in your opinion, they don't look like anything truly mind blowing, but you feel fairly confident that they are what they advertise to be, at least.
Okay. So I will say to Rest, well, at least the person who sold you this doesn't appear to be a snake oil salesman.
He did seem
Oh.
to know what he was talking about, so I will give him the benefit of that.
That should be the case, and it would be really fun if this turns out not to be the case, and we can always come back and, who knows, complain to his guild. I'm sure there's an apothecary guild here. It was official and all.
I spent my afternoon in the library, and funny thing, when I was there, they mentioned a duo, and there was a whole ruckus that seemed to be happening. That wouldn't happen to have been you two, would it?
I certainly had nothing to do with the ruckus.
I look away.
Okay. I see.
But if you did see a stack of about 10 or 15 books off to the side, that may have been reserved for me.
You know, I wasn't looking. There are so many stacks of books in there.
Oh, well, could have been a different library.
Could have been, Rist. Could have been.
All right. Yeah, y'all probably should eat. Do y'all want to eat at the Harpy's Talon, or do you want to go somewhere else? You could wander and hit up the street merchants.
By the way, Sotek, I bought the first portent of a mule with my experience.
Cool.
Okay.
Sotek, I want to gossip about the best street food stall there is
Sure.
in this town.
Go for it.
I'm fortune pointing that. This is too important.
Okay.
There you go.
You actually managed to catch some fairly middle class looking individuals who their jobs seem to be cleaning the streets of horse dung and other refuse, and one of them heavily recommends a gentleman near the south side of the docks who prepares this spectacular kind of fish using these really weird ingredients, supposedly from somewhere else in the country or maybe out of the country. But he swears by this guy's fish food, like I guess you could call it roasted. I don't know what the proper term would be, but he says that's the man to hit up.
Oh, thank you kindly.
And he tells you pretty specific directions. And basically he says the man sets a stall somewhere on the dock, but it's easy to tell because the sign above him always has a big old eel skeleton wrapped around it.
Oh, that'll be right easy to spot. Thank you very much. Verstadt, we've got some good grub to be digging up.
Sounds good to me. On the way there, I'm going to convey to them what I read in the library.
Okay. Are there any particular points you want to hammer home on, or... Otherwise, I will assume the minimal.
Yeah. Let me see 1 second.
I will also convey to Verstadt about what we learned about the Hager Creepers, to see if that might jostle any of his memories.
Remember,
So,
you potentially get bonus experience if you actually roleplay out unnecessary things. Just a reminder.
Well, I don't want to keep doing that. I've been doing that a lot so far.
That's fair. You don't have to do it, I'm just saying.
I want to let other people have time.
I'm getting back into it. Give me some time, Sotek.
So yeah, I'm gonna hammer home that basically leaving any sort of baby outside counts as an offering in these sort of this region as like a cultural thing. And I'm also going to hammer home this vague shape of a man with the skull and the antlers that was referred to as the Darkness.
Oh, the Darkness. I talked about him, didn't I, Verve?
Yes, you did.
Apparently, he's attracted to the Hager Creeper things.
Or they could be a ward. We don't know which.
Well, he seemed a little confused about that point. But I have to say, does that mean that if birds leave their chicklings alone at night to go off and find food because they're some kind of night bird, that's an offering to the god? Kind of weird.
I
Poor
think it's
forest
more
must be full of them.
I think it must be more directed towards us. I don't think. Well, I don't know.
Maybe it's all about intent.
Do you think that weird mutant thing counted as a baby left out in the woods at night?
Well, someone left it out.
Well,
Wait,
it kind of let
perhaps
itself out.
this
Does
is
that
also
count?
True.
By
I
this
need
point,
a theologian.
by this point, y'all have arrived at the stall, and it smells delicious.
Okay.
And he basically sells a fish on a stick for about 3 brass.
Oh, now this looks like fine eating, it does. I will wave over to the man. Oh, these smell delicious. I heard you use special secret ingredients from overseas.
The man, who is quite burly and large with a gut to match, grins through, revealing most of his missing teeth, and says, "Aye, but don't expect me to reveal my secrets."
Oh, that's a crying shame. I'll just have to guess then.
Last thing,
And I will give him a wink.
he waves his big old butcher's knife at you amusingly and says, "I don't need no halfling competition here on the docks. Life's hard enough as it is."
Well, I'd expect you to be swarmed, but here you go, and I will toss him a shilling. That'll be 1 each for me friends here and 2 for me.